We are live.
We are
Welcome,
live.
everybody. It's January 6th. This is the first episode ever of Cold Blooded After Dark. I'm your host, Travis from Python Susie. With me is my co-host, Rafe, aka Doc from Boyd's R Us. What's up, Doc?
Nothing much and everything at the same time.
Everything all at once.
I have a little question before. Why do I look like a freaking redneck in that picture that was like completely inbred for like 5 generations?
Because we're going for accuracy.
Okay, that makes sense. I just thought that you're gonna Photoshop it or anything like that. So
No. We made sure that was as accurate as possible representation.
Let me take the filter down.
I was thinking too, right before we started the show, this podcast is a terrible idea. It really is, because you have a horrible accent. Like, nobody can understand you. And I'm hard of hearing. We both have ADHD. So this is pretty much going to crash and burn. You ready to go down with a chip?
We're gonna make it happen, because when it burns, it creates fire, doesn't it?
yeah, and burns and heat and all that stuff. So tonight, I think we're going to talk a little bit about business sustainability, get a perspective from somebody like you that's been breeding for a really long time, the new guy like me that's new to this market but not necessarily new to business. We'll kind of do some comparing and contrasting, right? You can give me your feedback on what that looks like from your perspective as a long-term breeder, and then I'll do mine as a newer guy. And we'll talk about customer service, especially in light of the infestations people are getting from cocoa mites,
Exactly.
how to manage that kind of stuff. And then maybe we'll touch on some hybrids. But before we get into all that, let's tell everybody who the hell we are. Like, who are you? How did you end up in our country? And what are you doing now besides ball pythons?
Well, besides being a illegal immigrant that had to cross the border, I crossed the dry border. It was easier to jump out of the fence. I was in Brazil. I'm a veterinarian. I'm from Brazil. The reason why I left Brazil was because a lot of money that I owed to drug lords. So eventually I had to flee out of the country, and here I am. They told me, like, there are a lot of free stuff in the United States that the government is going to give you, and I'm thinking of opening a daycare now, so I can get a little piece of the pie.
All right.
So with all seriousness, I moved to the US in 2013. I started breeding snakes in '99. I started breeding boas, some colubrids, ball pythons, not ball pythons, I'm sorry, Burmese pythons and reticulated pythons, corn snakes, some king snakes, and then I had to move to the US. So I took probably a 5-year gap once I moved, because I got a job in food quality. So I travel all over the world and the US, visiting meat plants and frozen vegetables and all of that, and to guarantee quality product development and all of that. Once I moved here, I started having interest in snakes again, and I decided that I wanted a pet snake. And my wife told me, if you bring one snake to the house, I'm gone. About
so you got as many as you could.
Yeah. After 350 snakes, she's still here. So it didn't work.
No, your plan's not working.
No. So here I am. I have some boas, but my main focus is on ball pythons. I love all the pellets and the different morphs. I used to do the same thing, more rudimentary with corn snakes. back in the day, corn snakes or the ball pythons now, you had
Right.
all different morphs and recessives, and we'll be excited about like mixing different morphs. And so when I saw what we had now with ball pythons, I got flabbergasted. So uh, that's my focus now.
I got you. Well, speaking of being flabbergasted, let's see who's in the chat tonight. Let's call some people out here. We got Choke Artist Exotics. This guy's up in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, I believe, my state. What's going on, Choke Artist? Thanks for showing up. Motor City Morphs, good evening. Thanks for the well wishes. We got Holly, Texoma Exotics, one of our sponsors. She's behind the scenes helping us out. Much
All is the path.
appreciated. Morbid Morphs, here for the first. Thanks for showing up. Appreciate it. My wife wants to know if you landed in a sanctuary state. I don't think you did you?
I crossed through Texas, and then I had to get into the back of a car. So they drove me like 18 hours on the back of a hatchback. But I'm good now, so no issue.
Well, that's good. That's good. Yeah, Choke Artist Exotics. What's your immigration status? I think he's good now. So I think that's
My immigration status is hidden. I'm hiding right now.
all right. All right. Somebody call ICE. We did that and they didn't show up. So they may be busy. Yeah. So for me, as a lot of people know, I didn't get into ball pythons till just a couple years ago. But I think my first breeding experience ever with herps was actually red spotted newts when I was in like 6th grade. I caught some red Fs, and this is way back before
That
the internet.
Was that in the 60s?
80s, early 80s. And so I don't know how I found all this out. I must have just been reading books, but I found the red Fs are like when they're young and terrestrial, they're bright orange or like a neon orange. And I used to find them all the time in the Adirondack Mountains, and I collected them and raised them up. And when they become adults, they return to an aquatic state, and that's when they reproduce. And so I had a big, like 50-gallon aquarium with the red spotted newts in there, and I had the males and the females, and got them to lay eggs. I put real plants in there, and they would lay the egg and fold the leaf over, and then you'd get like a little newtlet or a little tadpole kind of thing.
Do they have any sex dimorphism?
They have a little bit. The males, when they're adults, they've got a broader fin on the tail, and they've got kind of more of a fin on the back than the females do. More of kind of like a display thing because they do like a lot of that. They swish the tail and stuff.
Where were you living back then?
This was upstate New York. So I lived there for most of my life, growing up, farming it and whatnot. And then I think I was in middle school. I collected some snapping turtle eggs and set up a water incubator with a little 10-gallon aquarium, a brick, little, not a petri dish, but a little, plastic container sitting on the brick. And then I had water in the bottom with an aquarium heater and just a styrofoam top. And I think I set it to like 83 degrees or whatever, and hatched a bunch of little turtle eggs, kept one and let the rest go, and collected a couple other snapping turtles and had them in a big cast iron tub in the backyard, and got them to lay a clutch of eggs and incubated that clutch, and did the same thing with Eastern painted turtles, which are a lot easier to do, by the way, than the snapping turtles. And so, so that was kind of, my first experience. And then, got older and went in the service, took a break for a while, got into leopard geckos a little bit later on, had a few clutches with them, and then took another hiatus, life and work and whatnot. And then my daughter, she's 5, she saw a blue-eyed leucistic. Our nanny had one, just saw a picture of one. And so she wanted a snake. And I always thought ball pythons were boring, to be perfectly honest. But I saw it and I was like, we could probably do something like that. We started with a stuffed snake. That didn't really seem to satisfy anything. So I ended up getting the bug, got a pair of Angolan pythons first, and got a hybrid python, and then got ball pythons. And now, I still have a small collection compared to a lot of people, 50 something snakes altogether, with the ball pythons, Angolans, the Sanzinia, the dwarf berms. So I think I'm at 56 and I'll be at 61 here shortly. I've got more snakes coming in that I promised I wouldn't buy. So
And that's one of the topics that I'm building for probably the next episode, but because some people might think that 50 animals is a small collection, but depending on what you're doing, it might be a huge collection. So we're gonna touch base. I'm working on the 5 pillars of breeding and things that you have to be looking out for and your planning. So that's gonna be
yeah.
for the next episode as we enter into the sustainability this episode.
Yeah, I think that's a really good idea. And so, yeah, speaking of sustainability, in this, everybody says, well, this is the current market. It's down, it's terrible, nobody can sell anything. It's going to come back. What is it coming back to? I look at what happened in 2020. I wasn't in it yet, but that you talk to enough people, you can look back and you can look at Morph Market, you can see the pricing and everything. And to me, that was like 3 years of pre-buying the market during that period. That was kind of like a black swan event where people were selling these snakes for just insane amounts of money, and you could apparently sell a snake in your sleep. And now I can't do it anymore. So to
Actually,
me, that means a return to normal, but I don't know what it was like before. Go
actually,
ahead.
what people don't realize that 2019 it was in a downslope already. Like we're already seeing the prices crumbling down until COVID hit at the beginning of 2000. I can specify, like Travis and we had that conversation before. How are the prices compared to? It's kind of, you'd have to make a comparison on price per snake on average
Yeah.
to really have a comparison. But this is such an evolving market that new combos and like back then a banana would still be a good price. You can sell a banana for $500 in 2019 or $400, and it always changing. Some things come back, some things go away, and some hypes go away. But because of COVID, everything changed. But it was not because of COVID that we had the crash. It was just like a bigger crash because the prices were unrealistic. But it was starting to go down the prices already. So, like any stock, the ball pythons or the reptile industry is the same.
Right.
Some people get out, supply is reduced, and then demands get higher. So yeah, you always have to kind of balance what you're doing, what you're breeding, and be mindful of what's happening around you.
Right. Now, when did you start breeding as what you'd call a professional python breeder?
Here in the US, probably during COVID is when I start really, really breeding. Before then, I was going to mention that you guys have no idea of how lucky you are here in the US having the infrastructure. When I was in Brazil, I had probably 100 animals, and all of the animals were either in aquariums, was not terrarium, aquariums. Like we didn't have like the front opening, or they were in Tupperware tubs, and then we would have to heat the whole room. Or if it's like because people have the misconception that Brazil is hot weather all the time. The south of Brazil, where I came from, is really close to Georgia in the seasons. So we have really cold weather in winter time, it's very specific. So you can tell the difference. So wintertime, I had to, for the boas, I had bricks, like solid bricks that'll put a 40 bulb, like 40-watt bulb. Like I would make like a little pan, and then put a tile on top, and that was like the heating for the snake. And as you can see now, like with the racks, I got amazed when I got here. So I
Yeah.
started with the PVC racks. Probably in 2018 was the first purchase. And then I started building my collection, and I did as most of people do. I was buying with my eyes. I had no idea. I was watching different YouTube channels. I was watching Brian Barczyk. I never heard of him before. Like, it was not a thing in Brazil. We had our own thing in Brazil. Ball pythons meant nothing in there because back then we had no morphs, and most of the things that would get into the country were wild caught.
Right.
So animals with mites, not mites, ticks. Like, you'd have to pluck out the ticks and use frontline, and they would not eat. And we don't know. Like, I was not a vet back then when I started. I was 17 when I bred my first boa.
Right.
And you had to deal what you have with what you had. So when I realized that how much stuff you could acquire here, like equipment wise, that's when I convinced my wife that I really wanted to go back on breeding. So
Yeah.
after a couple snakes, 2000 was when I think I had on 2020 is when I had 6 clutches the first time. And I think I started my YouTube channel on 22, if I'm not mistaken. Was it 22 or 23? I think it was 23. And then I went like really hard on like buying and trying to really get my pairings right and the breeders, and still now, like, what you think is good now might not be good for tomorrow. Like, you might invest a bunch of money and have no return because people that went heavy on desert ghost clowns, unfortunately, was not a good choice. It's a beautiful animal, but price wise, investment wise. So that's part of like what I have planned for it, like our 5 pillars too. What are you breeding?
So I did a quick search, and total inflation since I think 2019 is something like 33%. Right. And currently, especially the last 2 or 3 years, prices have dropped for, the pythons. And so obviously the cost of inputs has gone up. What, in light of that stuff, what do you do to stay sustainable? You're hanging on to hatchlings longer than typical, or maybe this is the new typical. What are you doing to avoid having to just move X amount of snakes to hit a target dollar figure? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. So 2 things. And again, I have to hold my tongue to not go too much into this because of the next episode that I'm building. But basically, you either have to have money to sustain your collection and not have to worry about it. That you either save from prior years and it's your business money, or it's your own money that you're willing to put in and you don't care if you sell or not. And you will have to be hanging those animals for up to a year. Some of the animals, because it's like moving stock, like inventory. Like, you don't move inventory every month. Like, some things are going to move. Like, if you have different items that you're selling, some things are going to move faster than others. The problem that we have with living animals is that they're always consuming. Let's think of frozen goods. Like, you still have to maintain them in the freezer. Like, you have the electricity bill, and it's not going to stop. If you have car parts that you sell on eBay, they're on a shelf, like their inventory, right? It doesn't
Right.
matter. Like, if you close your business, you sell the inventory, and you don't have any overhead. So you either have this money or you don't. So if you don't have this money, you have to breed your own rodents.
Yeah.
Then it goes to, do you have time to breed your own rodents? Do you have the will to be breeding rodents? Because that's another task. I was telling the story back in Brazil when I was breeding animals. I never spent $1 on rodents because my friend, he was the manager of a biotarian. He used to breed guinea pigs and mice for labs. So before the animals will go to the labs, like, that was like a huge breeding facility. And when he was doing his pairings and all of that, he would have actually to cull a bunch of healthy animals because you can't keep them all. Like, you can't sell them fast enough. And there was no demand in Brazil for people other than labs to be buying the rodents, right? So they would give me for free, like, hundreds and hundreds of rodents. So I never thought about it. When I moved here, I told my wife, I'm never breeding rodents. I can't stand the smell and, like, all the mess, and then we have to deal with trash. It has to be done in large scale. Once I start having $500, $600, $700 a week bills for rodents, and then, yeah, I think I might change my mind. I start watching some videos, like, on how to efficiently breed them. And then I figured out that was feasible. So I started here in this room. I only had one. I have two breeding rooms. So the other one was where I kept all my snakes, and here in the basement, this one was, both are in the basement, but this side of the basement was where the rodent were. This thing was a mess because the amount of dust, if you never bred rodents, you have to have a lot of ventilation. So it creates a lot of dust. It doesn't matter. You're never going to find a clean rodent building. You can clean the floors, you can wipe the racks, and you can do everything.
Right.
2 days later, you're going to have dust again. So you keep it neat, but it's never going to be like spot clean like your reptile room. And I decided, well, I can't do that anymore. Like, I can't have this in my house. So I moved it. I bought an outside building, a 10 by 20. And I built it, if it was I finish it off. Like, it has drywall, it has floor, insulation, and everything. And it's work, but it's worth it.
Yeah.
I did a math, and I saved 75%.
Yeah.
75% of what I would be spending.
Yeah. Same here. I I think I was doing this for 3 months, and when I bought my first colonies of ASFs, and I had said up to that point, I don't want to buy rodent, or I don't want to breed rodents. I don't want to get into that. And then 3 months later, I'm breeding them because just in, I'd say, that period of time, was it 3 months or 6 months? It might have been 6 months. I think the prices of frozen thawed had gone up 2 or 3 times. And initially I was like, this is fine. This isn't too bad. And then the prices went up again, and then they went up another, a third time. And I was like, I can see how this could be expensive. And for me, when I first got into this and looked at how I could be sustainable, the first thing I thought about was overhead. Like, this is an overhead intensive business model if you let it. If you've got hundreds of snakes, you've got a massive food bill, you've got a massive, electricity bill, water bill, depending on where you live. And so I decided right then and there, I needed to focus on a small number of snakes, multi-species, because it only took me a second to see how incredibly saturated the ball python market is. So I definitely needed to diversify a little bit and buy snakes to work with that didn't really have morphs, but had a stable price structure, right? Like Angolans are pretty stable, Sanzinia, dwarf berms, and those are all like different tiers of pricing structure, right? And talking with some of those breeders, the good breeders, for the dwarf Burmese can move a clutch a year. And so, you get 10 eggs, that's 40K, right? The cost to house and, keep a dwarf Burmese alive, or, moderately the same as ball pythons, maybe a touch more because they're slightly bigger. And I decided, as far as the balls go, is to try to buy the visuals as much as I could, as much as I could afford, and not waste a generation, on het-to-het stuff if I could avoid it, to keep my numbers lower, because that's the other thing. If your budget only allows for you to buy hets for something and you have to do a head-to-head pairing, then you have to have more snakes to hit the odds. So it's either pay me now or pay me later. You either buy the lower end snakes, but then you're going to have a greater overhead because you're going to have to house more snakes. And if you have the budget, you're going to pay more on shed testing.
And it all depends, and it comes to, and I agree with you, but it all comes to what's your end goal?
Mm-hmm.
Are you doing this as a business, or you're like, I want to buy hats because I want to hit at Ultramel. So I want to buy a pair of just single hat, like with some incomplete dominance, and I want to hit Anchi OD Ultramel. If that's your goal, like, and you want a couple of snakes and it's for fun, fine. Like, you don't have to spend a lot of money. You can buy cheap stuff and just be happy doing. But be mindful that you would have to sell the offspring. Like, if what you don't hit, you have to sell it. And if you're not prepared to be keeping, if you don't have space for those snakes, that becomes a big problem.
Yeah, agreed. And that's something I wanted
thing,
to avoid as much as I can, right? By getting the visuals.
Exactly. Another thing that people talk about, going into what you said, about diversifying. Only diversify if you like the other species. If you have a desire to have other species, don't go into the fad with other people. I remember that a lot of ball python breeders went into hognose because they thought that, oh, this is another, like, this is hot, let me get into hognoses because that's what the market is buying. I don't care for hognoses, for example, myself. I think they're cute, like, to look at, but I have no interest of breeding something that I have to, that's going to be finicky. To, like, all my hatchlings, probably from the 250 plus that I had this year, probably 4 I had to assist. Like, all of them eat. I never have issues with animals not eating. And the adults, if they don't eat, is because they don't feel like eating, and I don't stress about it as I used to in the beginning. Like, once you learn, like, about the how they behave, like the behavior and everything like that, you stop worrying about certain stuff. And if you ask me, I have 3 top animals that I would keep. Number 1, Amazon basin, emerald tree boas. If I had to pick, you can breed whatever you want, unlimited space. I would only have probably emeralds. I love them. That's a Brazilian Amazonian species, and I love them. I don't have the space, so for me it's hard. They're expensive, and I don't have the space to be raising only. One day, I'm probably gonna, if I move to another facility, that's my plan. But it's because I love them, not because, oh, I can make this money with this species. And the second one are boas. I love boas, but myself, I don't like boas in rack systems. Like, I like them in enclosures. Like all of my boas, I don't have a lot, but all my boas are enclosures. And I'm not saying the racks are bad, but boas tend to move more and stuff like that. And the third one is the ball pythons, because I love how the combinations like turn out to, and the possibilities like are infinite. So
right. So you don't think you could pare down your ball python projects for some emeralds and maybe another boa or two? I think you could do that. You've got how many ball pythons do you have?
adults? That's a really tough question. Probably between the grow outs and probably 200.
200. So I think you could pare that back at least by 50% and get
So
some.
let's say the 350 that I said at the beginning, it's probably more because I was counting the hatchlings. With the
Yeah.
hatchlings, I probably have around 4 something.
The cost to maintain an emerald tree boa is roughly the same as a ball python.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's not about the cost to maintain them. It's just no. I agree with you. Money wise, yes, but I want to have like a dedicated room, like with temperatures proper for them, and
Yeah.
I want to do something special when I have them. I just don't want to have. Oh, I'm taking out this rack and I'm putting four enclosures for the emeralds.
Sure.
Usually, you do hotter temperatures with ball pythons, and plus the maintenance. Like you have to be keeping up the humidity. And I had them in Brazil. I never bred them. Probably I didn't have the right conditions. I didn't have as much knowledge as I have them about them that I have now back then.
Right.
And even in Brazil, they were hard to. It's easier to get an Amazon basin here than Brazil. Basically, in Brazil, you cannot have anything that is not already registered. You can't have anything exotic. Let's put it this way: I was not an illegal immigrant, but I was illegal back in Brazil. Argentina can import anything that they want, so that was the back door to get into Brazil was through Argentina. Like they would import animals and they would come to, and probably I don't know if they would go through underground, but I know that they went through like a big name on the import and wholesaler side because they had anything that you wanted, anything that they would have for sale.
So speaking of selling, our next topic is customer service, especially customer service in light of, today's more difficult market. What are you running into as far as challenges, customer sentiment, customer expectations, things of that nature?
I think before we talk about what I've been through is like what I do as far as customer service. I don't treat anybody different. If someone is buying like a $2,000 snake from me, or if they're buying a $50 snake, I'm gonna give them the same attention. And usually, believe it or not, the guys that buy the most expensive snakes are the ones that need less attention. I had $1,500 transactions. How much it is? How much is shipping? Okay, money's transferred. When can you ship it? Done. And then you have a $40 snake that you have to help them make sure they have the right conditions, because most people then when they reach out to you on the lower end stuff, they don't even have an enclosure. They just see the snake, and I can see myself in that position. Like back in the day, like you see an animal, you want to buy it, right? You go to PetSmart and say, oh, a ball python, I'm gonna buy it. and then you buy the cheapest stuff that you can find, and you don't do any research because you think it's easy. You see the animal in this small cubicle and you think it's fine, as they have on display at the store. So I try myself to give the most attention to that people because I really feel for them and I want the animal to thrive. And sometimes, as much as you try, people don't want to listen.
Oh yeah.
They will tell you that they keep 3 snakes in the same tank and that they're fine, and that you don't know what you're talking about. I refuse sales. Like, if somebody tells me that they're gonna put the animal on this and they're not give me, and I'm not saying to people that, oh, just buy PVC enclosures and that's what you have to have. If you can get like a small terrarium, like glass, and you follow, like, you have to have a thermostat, you have to keep the humidity. I'm fine, but I've been called a racist on a chat on Morph Market because I didn't want to sell the snake to the guy because he was showing me pictures where he was going to put the snake, and I said, "I'm sorry, sir, I cannot do that. Like, this is not proper enclosure."
Right.
And I was called a cracker.
A what?
Cracker, not a cracker, a cracker.
All right. I've been called a cracker. I know what that is.
Yeah, exactly. So it was not a cracker, it was a cracker. So you're gonna deal with a bunch of different people, and it doesn't matter what people tell you. You have to be respectful, even if they're not being respectful to you, and you have to stop the conversation. Say, I'm not gonna go into this type of argument. I'm sorry. Call sir or ma'am, and you're not obligated to sell anything to anybody.
Right.
That's the principle. Like, we have the right to refuse service and we have the right to refuse sales. If you're not feeling comfortable, if you're feeling, when you have, and you're gonna have that feeling when you're chatting with someone, you're gonna have the feeling if that person is gonna be a problem, because they're looking for a fight or argument. Some people will have dopamine releases when they're fighting with people. I have an ADHD daughter, so I know what I'm talking about. And they'll try to fight you, and it doesn't matter what you say. They want the reaction out of you, and don't give that to them.
Yeah.
Just be respectful. Good customer service. If people ask you to hold an animal for a while, if you're willing to, you say yes. If you can't, you can't.
You hold with deposit, right?
Exactly. Always deposit. I have many circumstances in the past that people said, "No, I'll definitely buy from you. I'm gonna wait for this," and it usually never happens. And I understand people have circumstances in their lives, and that's why you have a deposit. That's the importance of the deposit. It's not because you want to steal somebody's money, but you're feeding that animal. I mean, I'm holding animals that I sold for $50 for 2 months now.
Right.
And that I said yes, and that's fine. I knew about the weather, and I couldn't ship it anyway. So, like, why not?
Right.
But you have to be mindful of those things too. Yeah. Payment plans, put in place like something that is feasible, or something that people are going to pay you bi-weekly at least. So when they have their paycheck, they're going to be, so it doesn't get to the time of shipping. Oh, I don't have the balance. Well, I cannot ship the animal. And guys, don't give money back, because that you lost a sale. That animal probably devalue
Opportunity
on the
cost.
time that you're holding it. I mean, I sold two banana strangers head clown in a show, and 2 weeks later they dropped half in price because somebody else started putting the same animals for sale, the same morphs, everything, and it's supply and demand. So that's another thing. When somebody offers you something, if it's reasonable, sell it. If you don't need that animal, like, it's not a loss. I mean, you're ready. if you're selling an animal for $500, you're making good money, unless you're asking 2,000 and somebody's offering $500. But if you don't need that animal, or you have multiple animals close to that, just sell it, because animals are going to devalue. Back in the day, adult females would worth a lot. Not anymore.
Yeah.
I believe back in the day was like $1 per gram, like for females. That's what they were being sold for. It was like an insane amount of money. So right now, as time passes, like you lose the pet market if the animal is too big. And then you can't bring it to shows anymore because they take too much space for what they're worth. So you have to be mindful of everything. But going back to customer service, I always try to do my best to help people. That's what I do, and be understanding, helpful. Some people will try to chat with you for 2 hours. I mean, you have to say in a respectful way too, like I have to go or something like that, because I understand the excitement. I've been there. Like you want to talk about your animal, like you receive, and then you want to show the first feeding, and they don't have the magnitude of how big your operation is and how much time you're involved, that you don't have the time and you have other customers to attend to.
Right.
And we talk about this, Trav, on another note, as you as a customer should be respectful too.
Yeah.
If somebody priced an animal, there's a reason behind that pricing, right? It's either because they did the math and that's how much it cost them to produce the animal, like from what they spent on the parents and what they spent on whatever their math is.
Right.
So my tip is, if you want to get a discount, if you want to ask for a discount, don't ask like what's your bottom price. That's an insult, because the amount of work that we put in these animals. Just ask like,
how flexible are you? That's what I usually ask. How flexible are you on the price?
Exactly. Or are you flexible? Or if I buy 2 animals, like what discount can you give me? And I was telling Travis, if I have a lot of the same like type of animal, I'm willing to give a bigger discount. If I have a high value item and I have 2 or 3, I'm not going to be as flexible, because I don't mind sitting on those animals, because if they're females, I can just grow them out and just put back in my breeding. Or if they're males, they can be backup males too. So they're different. It's not because I'm selling you one animal that I can give you the same discount that I'm giving on the other animals.
Yeah.
And always try, like, if you see other stuff that you like, try to do a package deal. Like breeders love to sell like multiple animals, because it's one shipping, is free space on the racks, it's less work for us. I'm always trying to work with people, as long as they're respectful and they're mindful of that you're a person behind the screen too.
Right. Yeah, I know for me as a buyer, I'll approach a breeder, and first of all, I won't say anything to the breeder. I won't reach out to them or anything unless I want the snake, for one. Right? Because I know that tire kicking is really annoying, having been, run my own small businesses in the past. So when I see something that I like, I see the price, I'm like, could I pay that for that snake? And if the answer is yeah, I think that's a fair price, then I'll shoot the breeder a message and I'll say, hey, how flexible are you? And I think 9 times out of 10, they say at least, at a minimum, I'll cover shipping. And if they do that, even if they just a little bit of give and take, that's just to feel good. And I'm like, all right, done. And then promptly, send the money, and the communication is usually pretty good, especially with the guys that are, that sell the ball pythons, because I think that's kind of what do you want to call it? Kind of the culture for the most part.
and don't get me wrong, I'm Brazilian. I love a deal. I don't like to pay full price on anything. Like that's in our nature, like culture wise. So, but you have to know when to stop, or when is if you really need that animal and you can't find another one, depending on the timing, you might lose that animal. And then you
Yeah.
have to wait 2 or 3 years to find another one because he had specific morphs that you wanted and was probably 600 grams, a male already 600 grams. You're going to put straight into your breeding. And all the animals that I paid good money for, I get the return. I always
Right.
get the return because you have to be mindful of the females that you have and all of that. So don't miss out for like sometimes you're gonna like be haggling for like $50 or shipping or and then you lose that animal because you never know who else is inquiring that animal. Sometimes
Yeah.
that animal can be like on morph market for a year and you're like, oh, it's been here for a year, I'm just gonna
Just
lowball him.
wait it out. Yeah.
And then somebody had the same idea as you and they got it for $50 more.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's exactly what I did with the tri-stripe pair that I got, the 1.1. The male was exactly what I was looking for, almost down to, every gene. And it was even het clown, which I was like, if I could get one that was het clown, that would be a bonus. He was OD blade, tri-stripe, het clown. And then the female was, OD leopard tri-stripe. And I think if I remember correctly, she's het clown too. So I saw those and I was like, I'm not going to wait on those because he's already almost 1,000 grams, and she's 700 and something grams. So
You
that
got
was
the
a no brainer.
you got the animals that you wanted. You got animals from a project that is untapped. Not a lot of people are working with tri-stripe, so we never seen the true potential of the recessive.
Right.
And you got what you wanted. And you have multiple uses for the male because you want to put into your hybrid project that we're going to go into a little bit later in the episode. And sometimes it's better to save money and buy what you want than trying to cheap out on stuff
Yeah.
because if you're taking this serious either as a hobby or as a business, sometimes it's better to save money and buy what you want and I did that for a long time here in the US because I was always trying to look for a deal. And
Right.
those deals never took me anywhere until I realized that I had to focus on what I wanted to do. And not what I wanted to do, but what the hell am I doing? At one point, it's like I have this bunch, like I would buy like Craigslist and go to shows and oh, let me go to the Deli Cup section and like the Deli Cup special and just buy a bunch of stuff until
Right.
I realized that okay, what I'm gonna do with these animals then?
Yeah.
Because especially when I started breeding ball pythons, that was during COVID, so anything had value. Like anything that you're breeding, like I made all my money back from all the animals, most of the animals that I bought, but um, I have a hard time. I still have some of those animals that I can't get rid of because there's no interest because the market changed.
Yeah.
And going back a little bit as a customer, guys, don't screw up your customers. I had some horrible experiences. More than one time, I got males for females. I bought females and I got males, and I reached out to the breeder. Some did not respond. Some told me to pound sand. So try to buy from reputable breeders. Like that.
Yeah.
Nowadays, people don't have words anymore. They just want your money. And I'm not saying that it's not going to happen. You can buy a snake from me and I can pop it and maybe it was like a Japanese snake that had like a tiny weenie and then I didn't see it, like it didn't pop it right. I tried to do it multiple times because sometimes when they're freshly hatched, You might think that a male is a female too, like a female is a male, because when you pop them, the glands are a little bit red. So when you pop them, you might think that it's a male. So I always wait a little bit, and I always exactly, Holly. Um,
So, hey, Rafi, let me interrupt you real quick. Speaking of tiny wieners, do you want to talk about reptile ads real quick?
oh yeah, guys. First of all, thank you, Holly. She's one of our sponsors, and she's helping us with the show. So big shout out to Holly. And Zach from Reptile Ads. If you guys are not aware of Reptile Ads, it's a new website for buying and selling, including one thing that Morph Market is not tapping into, which is selling supplies. I've been having talks with Zach. I want to start selling cocoa. If you want to sell stuff locally, it's a platform that you can advertise for your supplies as well. So it's not only for reptiles. And I think it was missing that. Like if you want to sell rodents, like you have overage of rodents and you want to sell locally, like live rodents or frozen rodents, you don't have to have a rodent business to sell rodents. You just have to put what is available, and when it's gone, it's gone. So it's an amazing platform. Zach works for Husbandry Pro, so it's completely integrated with Husbandry Pro. If you have it, you can just like pull your ads straight to your animals straight to reptile ads. Is really streamlined and seamless. I had mine on Morph Market. I don't have Husbandry Pro, but I had mine on Morph Market, and there's an export tool. I'd never done it before, and for 70 animals took me an hour. If you're doing for the second time, it's probably going to take you 15 minutes. So it's an artist selling platform. We're trying to do a build for the community. Zach is an amazing guy. If you have any tips to how to make the website better, he's going to listen. He's going to try to improve it.
Yeah.
And they're going to come up with an app now. Right now it's just a website, but it has a really nice interface for mobile. It almost looks like an app. But he's working on a standalone app. So
Yeah.
shout out to
I would want to add too is that on reptile ads, you can actually make comments on the listing itself. So instead of having to direct message the seller, you can put a comment in that's public, and the seller can answer that, and that might answer the question that 3 or 4 other people have. So it's a little bit more efficient that way as well. So
and
yeah.
if you don't want to have the comments because you don't want trolls, you can disable the feature, and you're not gonna have that. So it's a plus. You can have it. Like it's basically you can custom as you like it.
Yeah. So yeah, it's good. Everybody go check that out. I'm on it. Rafi's on it. Seems like it's definitely going to be a viable alternative, or in addition to, Morph Market, any of the other places you might be advertising your snakes on. And then also you had to shout out Holly. She's helping us out backstage. She also runs Not Another Reptile podcast, which Rafi and I are also on. So yeah, it's like one great big happy family. She's into dark chocolate. She loves her dark chocolate, and hit her up. She'll smack you in the mouth and she'll sell you a snake at a good price. She also sells rats locally too. So if you're in the is it southern Oklahoma, northern Texas panhandle area, that Texoma Exotics, go hit her up. She'll give you some rats and chat your ear off. So
well, I might have passed by her facility, like when I was in the back of the hatchback when I was crossing the border. Like
yeah, I can
around,
see that.
I couldn't see it, but I think it was around that area.
Yeah. Her and her husband Bobby do a good job with their snakes and their rats. So definitely check them out. When they're not catfishing, they're feeding snakes and doing all that reptile breeding.
Amazing collection too.
Yeah. So speaking of reptile breeding, the other thing that we were going to talk about tonight was hybrids, because that's seems to be kind of the rage right now. Um, if you guys have not been paying attention, there's a guy in the Philippines, Matt Miller. We had him on Not Another Reptile podcast not too long ago. He decided that his first clutch ever was just going to be burn balls. And he didn't hatch a couple burn balls. He ended up with, I think, 2 clutches totaling 50 something viable animals. And that was kind of the crazy part. And the other crazy part was that they were all beautiful. And it was just I believe it was a pastel clown ball python to a Burmese that had some hets. I think it wasn't anything too spectacular, if I remember correctly, but the offspring are just phenomenal.
Was a hypo berm too.
It might have been a hypo. I know there's a hypo het, maybe a het granite, het albino in there somewhere. I can't quite remember what the pairings on the berm side were. But for me, that was huge because for whatever reason, I've always gravitated towards the hybrids. I've always thought they were cool. And the third snake I bought, in addition to the Angolans, behind the Angolans was the Royal Angolan, or the Angry Ball. And so that's what I'm into now. And I find those snakes to have just an incredibly high degree of hybrid vigor, and compared to both the ball pythons and the Angolans. The Angolan it's a really hardy snake. They've got beaded scales. They have a wider temperature range. They have lower humidity requirements. They are very good eaters. And they are a very curious and active python.
They're a spunky ball python, let's put it this way.
Yeah, a lot of people, like the typical name for the Angolan ball cross is Angry Ball because, the Angolans are hissy, but they're hissy like a Burmese python is hissy. They're not aggressive. I've got them in tubs right now, and you open the tub and they come out immediately and they crawl around on you, and they're curious when they're in their enclosures, and you come into the office or wherever the enclosure is, the snake room. They come to the front of the enclosure and they come to the side of the door to be let out. And you let them out, and every time they come out immediately and they want to tool around and check things out. And the hybrids exhibit the same exact personality. And I would say like the 50-50 hybrid is probably more like a 60-40 version of the Angolan ball, with 60% Angolan in terms of they've got the beaded scales, they've got the outgoing personality. But I think where they display the hybrid vigor is the feeding response and just the overall strength, the constitution. Because you hold one of those snakes and it's like holding an iron bar. Like they are just an incredibly powerful snake, And
So
neither
let
the balls or the Angolans are super powerful. You know what I mean?
let me ask you a question then. So we know how I don't have an issue with hybrids at all, and I think they're super cool. I mean, there are some hybrids that are not very fun, like the like Womas, and like when you go like when they're too much apart genetically, I don't think it's a good thing on the outcome. It's like you can do whatever you want. Like I don't think you're not releasing them into the wild. So like back in where they came from.
Right.
But in your perspective, let's say that today you had some Angolans and you have some Burms, and you breed them together, and you have overall 50 hatchlings. How long do you think would take you with the market for those animals for you to move 50 animals from the experience that you have, for example?
So I think to move that many animals, for me personally, maybe 3 years.
Are you really?
I think it would take a while because there are a lot of people that are interested in them. When I post things on social media, I post the hybrids, whether they're mine or they're somebody else's, and I'm sharing it. I usually get a message. And so that's a positive. But the hybrids currently are a little bit more expensive, especially if you look at the burn balls. And I think that that's because here in the States, we haven't quite figured out all of the environmental factors to get good clutches. Like over in the Philippines, I think he's got some luck with just the natural environment being high humidity. I think there are temperature drops at night that are perfect. Just naturally, he keeps his collection. The berms are outdoors, and the balls are in a room that's very open and airy. So I think that plays a lot into it. I think the temperature drops at night are a bigger deal than what we think that they should be, if that makes sense, just across the board. And I'm coming to this conclusion because I'm researching Boolean's pythons right now, and I'm seeing the lack of luck we have in the States for getting viable. We'll get big clutches, 26 eggs, but 2 or 3 are the only ones that survive. Lots of slugs. And so I think that there's a sperm quality there because we don't temperature cycle like what they have evolved to experience in the wild up at altitude in Papua New Guinea. And so balls are not at altitude and things like that, but there are temperature drops every 24 hours, right? And so our snake rooms, typically we want to keep the temperature as constant as possible with a hot spot. And so I think it might be a little bit more a matter of luck if the male goes from the hot spot to the cool spot and does some sort of temperature cycling on his own. So, and there are some breeders, especially up in Canada, that do a seasonal temperature cycle, and they swear by it in terms of it helping their clutch sizes and the egg viability. So I think there's more to it than what we think. And so, going back to the price, it's harder to make them here. The Royal Angolan's not so hard to make, because they're a lot more similar, both in terms of environment and genus. They're very, very closely related. So yeah, so that they're a little cost prohibitive right now.
Yeah,
And
my question went into my second question would be like, and the same thing that I tell people that want to breed retics, like, do you have space to house 50, 60, like from 2 clutches, like 60 hatchlings from retics, if they don't sell? Because they grow fast. They're aggressive eaters, so if you don't feed them as much, they're gonna basically attack you because they're hungry. They're not like ball pythons, and they lose weight much faster. So it cannot be like maintain feeding like some breeders do. But I think you had a really good idea on doing the hybrids with the super dwarfs because that's more manageable size wise. I'm always worried to like, I could not breed, to be honest, like especially like lower end boas, I cannot breed them fast enough. Like every time uh, I have boas, I sell them. I haven't produced any last year. I didn't pair any of my boas. I'm gonna have 1 pairing this year. I breed them more for fun than anything else.
right.
But I know that I'm gonna be able to move them, and they don't grow as fast as a burn ball would grow. I would think like a mainland burn. So I think you're kind of getting to a niche that is not tapped into too. So I think it's going to be very interesting to see your development on that project.
I'm definitely excited about that. I've got a 50% dwarf Burmese. I'm getting another one in the spring. I'm trying to get a third one that is visual albino. But the breeder that has it has the clutch. He's not super communicative, so I'm not counting on that one. So
I wouldn't either, to be honest.
yeah.
I
So
I like I like the wild type much better. I mean, because there's much more that you can do with somebody's having stomach issues here, like on my side.
Oh, is that
Like I can hear it loud.
how you thought it was gonna be as a python breeder versus how it really is?
Exactly. So
Bark in
you
the snake room.
exactly. Probably it was not only a fart. Let's see, like after we finish the episode, I'm gonna open the drawer and see how it goes.
Yeah.
And why did you have to call me out? I was trying to make it look like it was a snake.
It was obvious, Rafi, it was obvious.
I
But yeah, I
I
mean, as far as the dwarfs
I
go,
I even leaned to the side a little bit.
yeah,
Um,
the
I
pure
think
dwarf,
if you
the
don't
Progachai, I wanna keep the line of pures because there's just so few of them in the industry, but
not
for
only
like
that, you can do much more with pattern if you don't have albinos. We know
yeah,
how like the color and the contrast are done. I love baby albino Burmese, like the oranges and everything that you get. I wish they kept those colors, but they become white and yellow.
yeah,
So I think you're gonna do much better with like the wild type. Plus, it's pure size wise, so you don't have to worry about like when you cross them back together that you're gonna have like a huge snake or anything like that.
right. Well,
Uh,
that's so yeah, so just to clarify, the hybrid project, I'm gonna use the 50% dwarfs. The pures, the pure Progachai, I need to make several clutches of the pures before I move into hybrids with just the pures because I wanna get those out into the market, and I wanna
oh,
work with the pures and learn, learn all of the nuances and everything because 'cause they're so rare right now that I don't wanna just start out with hybridization. Unfortunately, there's a lot of people that are putting the pures to the mainlands. At least they're being upfront, at least the ones that I know of are being upfront with the percentages.
but
Um,
aren't you getting male the super dwarfs?
I'm working on it. I'm hope the guy that's, pairing them, I hope that, he gets a clutch, and I'll
Because if you get a
probably
male,
buy as many as he will allow me to buy. So,
because if you get a male, you can start a project with the super dwarfs.
yeah.
And then you can get like a bigger female ball python and just how big are the clutches of the super dwarfs?
They're not as big as the main lens. I
Oh,
think you're probably looking at, like, maybe 8 to 12,
so it's
maybe
similar, a little
15.
bit more than a ball python then.
Yeah. So I think, a male Progachai to a Volta, I think that might be a good, size-wise, that's pretty comparable, right? Because you gotta worry about the equipment a little bit with the male if the male is the larger of the 2 species. So
I think what we can do is we can get some good morphs in my Volta and then work that process on the offspring.
yeah,
If you have a male, like, and then we can start the project.
yeah. It's a lot of fun. I mean, I thoroughly enjoy it. I bought a berm ball, a little over a month or so, maybe a couple months back, and that's a really, really interesting snake. It's not even 6 feet long. It's a 5-year-old female. She's probably just the size of a Volta, maybe a touch larger, and definitely has the Burmese look. And I love the behavior. I can totally see why they're a perfect snake. But I can't discount the Royal Angolans either. Those are, you have to experience that snake too. And I know they're not going to be as popular because the Angolan is not as pretty or as popular a snake to a lot of people as the Burmese. But I think that they definitely make up for that in their behaviors and their attitudes. So
And I don't think the cross is going to be as crazy as with a Burmese because they're so different, like in pattern. And like, even though you can make some nice patterns with the golems,
Yeah.
uh, as what I've seen on the last episode of the podcast, that was crazy for the amount of genes like that. The little genes that he had, like the difference and the diversity in patterns, just like Stranger. You're never gonna have a stranger clown, for example, that is gonna look like each other. Like it's always variable the pattern. So
Well, imagine what those F2s are going to look like because they're het clown. So, I mean, he's got that hypo that's, it's what het granite hypo pastel. I forget what else, what all is in it, but it's het clown. So,
I hope the granite doesn't screw up.
well, there's one way to find out.
Yeah, it's just like to me, it's just granite genes. Like when you're talking about recessives, because the granite in Burmese is the same thing as the monsoon. So right now, nobody showed me anything with monsoon that wowed me as far as pattern. Like somebody might be able to find something, but it's such a dominant gene that pastel, for example, screws up. Like it becomes like mud. So it's very easy to screw up monsoon depending on the genes that you put in there.
Yeah.
So I'm interested on seeing what the F2s are going to look like.
Yeah, I'm very, very interested in that. So it's definitely longer term stuff, but I think the customer sentiment or market sentiment or community sentiment, whatever you want to call it, I think it's more positive than what a lot of us have been led to believe. There are definitely more people interested in the hybrids than admit it. I mean, I have had people say that, yeah, I love the hybrids. I think they're great, but yeah, I'm not gonna say anything about it publicly because I don't know how much it'll hurt my brand. And I'm just like, well, that's your decision on that. Everybody's business is their own and they live and die by the consequences of their business decisions. I could be shooting myself in the foot, as a business, but I honestly don't think so. They're better snakes. They really are. The heterosis or the hybrid vigor is really impressive. And I think if somebody were to come to me, a new snake, somebody that wants to buy their first snake, and they said, should I buy a ball python? Should I buy, a hybrid, Royal Angolan or ball, a Angolan python or whatever? I would steer them towards the hybrid because they eat better than both. They're still super, super curious. And for lack of a better explanation, they've got a massively strong constitution. They're a very powerful, very, vigorous snake that is curious and engaging. And they're beautiful.
How long did was it endless morphs?
Eternal morph, same thing, same concept.
Did How long did it take for him to sell most of the offspring from those two clutches?
So
Because he only
don't.
has like besides his holdback.
So I know he had a big
Besides,
order. So he had one big order from like UAE or something over in the Middle East. I think he sold the majority of the ones he intended to sell. I think he's got still a few that he's looking to move. But I can't tell you the exact numbers, but overall he's very, very happy with how things have turned out. And he can't sell to the United States, right? We can't transport, we can't import them because of the Lacey Act. So he's not even able to tap into the biggest market. And, he's happy enough to be breeding them again in earnest, this season. So
yeah, if just going back to the whole hybrid thing and all the people screaming out of their lungs about how bad this is. There's a lot of people that should be going to jail for centuries now, like they're breeding donkeys and horses together because that generates a meal. And hybrids are not always bad. Like some hybrids are bad. But ball pythons, even if you breed some, they're the same species, depending on the morph, they're going to be bad too. If you breed two spiders together, if you breed two black pastels together, if you breed two spot nose together, can be bad. So it always depends. To me, it's more be self-conscious, conscious of what you're doing. And
Yeah.
if you're taking, like, some people, like, they're against hybrids and they don't keep good husbandry in their animals, like they have dirty tubs. And so always look at yourself and see if you're doing the right thing, and if you feel that you're doing the right thing, I have no problem with it.
I mean, for me, I think an ethical hybrid is a snake that is fertile and displays hybrid vigor and
Right.
serves a purpose in the pet industry. You know, like the burn balls. A lot of people love the Burmese python, because of its personality, but the size is prohibitive. A lot of people love the ball pythons because they're beautiful, but they can be shy and reclusive and just not very engaging. You put the two of those together, you get a beautiful snake that displays the behaviors of the Burmese. It's got a little bit of size to it still. It's got better feeding response, and they're absolutely beautiful, right? And same thing for the Royal Angolans. We've got the Angolan python, which is my all-time favorite. But they're an olive drab snake. I think they're beautiful, but in contrast to the popular ball python, I've heard them referred to as just ugly ball pythons. I don't know how many times, but they're completely different, right? Um, but when you combine those with the ball python, it's like it takes the best genetics from both and puts it into a snake that's just an all-around better pet snake, and can eventually be an investment level animal if the people doing the hybridization stay honest with what they're doing and ethical, and breed for quality, right? And not breed to try to make a buck on selling a unique hybrid snake, right? And that you're gonna get that, right, no matter what. So
But to be honest, Trav, even if they're not fertile, like the offspring is not fertile, if the animal is good, is fine, it eats. Like, a mule is not infertile and it's an amazing animal. So
yeah,
if the animal is thriving, eating, living well, they don't have developmental issues, they don't have deformities, I'm totally fine. I don't have a problem. I like hybrids. I never thought of breeding hybrids. People do in macaws. You see a lot of macaws that are hybrid between the green wing and the blue wing and the blue and gold. And
right.
uh, if
Well, I
they're
mean, the way I see it is it opens up another part of the market. I mean, we have a lot of saturation with the ball pythons now. I see this as a another acceptable avenue of exploration, that has enough pet value to invest in.
But
So
let's not even go into business. If you think that they're beautiful and they thrive and you want to breed them and you want to do different projects, that's your own. Like, if you want to have like a nice pet, or you want to
yeah,
have it doesn't have to be like, oh, I'm gonna. And people always, and they have to think about money. Let's not be stupid. I know I'm saying that, but first of all, you have to love what you do and love the things, like to love to breed. Because if you start thinking dollars, dollars, dollars,
yeah,
just go into stocks and crypto, because then you don't have to clean shit. And
yeah. But
and
you can't play with your Bitcoin in your snake room at 10:30 at
and
night.
that's the thing. If you don't love this, but you do this because you love this. I'm here. The first thing, I come, I kiss my wife, I say hello to my kids, and I come down and I start cleaning, because it's an everyday. I try not to work on weekends. I cannot, because it's a lot of work.
Yeah,
My wife helps me with the rodents. My son helps me with the rodents. Without them, I would have no life, because of the rodents. At the beginning, I was doing by myself, like assembling the clean tubs with shavings and stuff like that, and I couldn't. So if you don't love this, just have some pets as a hobby. Like if you're getting into this, make sure you love what you're doing and that you get excited. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter if the market is flooded. Like you want to see those animals peeping and what's the possibility, what's going to come out of that egg, and doesn't matter what you're doing. You can be breeding bells. I think they're beautiful, and there's a market for them. So I don't. You don't have to be in the high end projects. You don't have to be in the high end projects.
Right.
The likelihood of you making money in the high project is bigger if you are aware in the market. If you're known in the market, if you're not known in the market, nobody's going to buy your. You can produce a $50,000 snake. Do you think they're going to buy from you or from Justin? So
Right.
money is not everything. So know your audience, know your customers, and try to know what you want to accomplish. If you want to have as a hobby, have 10 reptiles, and you don't have to have 10 ball pythons. You can have crested gecko, you can have a boa, and you can have a tegu, and whatever you want to have, and just enjoy those animals. Breeding is not for everybody.
Yeah. No, I
So
agree with you 100%. It's all about what makes you happy. That's the sustainable aspect of things, right?
if you're trying to
What is, who are they going to buy a teacup berm from? This
well,
guy.
that's a secret source because he's having a hard time buying the teacup berm. He's probably going to buy from the same people that people buy teacup pigs and they end up being 300 pounds.
Yeah, that's always a possibility. You don't know until you know. And then usually when you know, it's too late.
What's the difference since we went into this? Like when you see a super dwarf hatchling, what's the morphological difference like in pattern and or something that is usually stands out that you can tell that that's a super dwarf and not somebody trying to sell you a
Right.
$50 berm mainland.
So that's a really good question. And with some of the morphs that are in the mainlands, it makes it actually very, very difficult in terms of pattern assessment. So a dwarf Burmese is a subspecies, right? It's the Python vivitatus progachai. They have a very jumbled pattern. Um, right? There's you don't in the Burmese you have kind of the traditional blocks along the along the back. In the Pragashai, you don't have that. There are some very nuanced colors around the edges of the blocks that are very indicative of the Pragashai. Head structure, the for lack of a better term, the nose of the Pragashai is more pointed. So they've got a little bit more of an arrow-shaped head. That's a lot more evident um, when they're adults. You've got, if you look at a dwarf or an adult mainland, they've got kind of a heavy, broad snout. If you look at an adult progashite, its snout is a lot more pointed, and its eyes sit up a little bit higher on its head than a Burmese does. Unfortunately, there are some Burmese morphs that can pass very, very much like a progashite. And so you won't know that it's not a progashai until it's a lot more along in its development.
So that goes
And
back to who you're buying from, right?
yeah, definitely goes back to who you got to trust who you're buying from. If they're not giving you good pictures of the adults, if they're not talking to you specifically about growth rates, growth rate after a year, 2 years, etc., then that's something that you got to worry about. And I have a 50% dwarf that's het granite. And I have to put the snakes next to each other to be able to tell them apart. And like right now, I can see some minor differences in the head structure. Patterning is pretty much identical. Coloration, I think, is just now, as they're both growing, it's just now I starting to see differences in the two pures versus the one that's the 50%. If my wife wonders what I'm doing so often, downstairs in the snake room till 1 a.m. So I'm staring at the snakes back and forth, trying to identify, ways to tell them apart, that are, 100% guaranteed. And none of them are. So, um, and then as like overall body structure, the Pragashy are a little bit lighter built. But again, you don't see that fully until they're adults.
Or you can be fooled very easily if you don't know who you're buying from.
Yeah. Yeah, you can. Especially with a 50% dwarf, because some of the 50% dwarfs don't get much over 8 or 9 feet. And, we're looking at 5 to 7 feet for a full, 100% Pragashy. So I think the largest one that I've heard of was close to 8 feet. So
Yeah, I told you, like just like the super dwarf, it was defined as a subspecies. I tend to believe by the difference in head structure and sheer size of the voltas. I believe they should be reclassified because it's a different animal. Somebody
yeah,
posted the other day 8,000 gram volta. They posted a picture of the animal on the scale. So
gee,
8,000 gram volta, and he said that she was empty, so he hasn't fed her or anything. So, do you see any ball pythons like regular made like getting to that size? I never seen like a regular ball python getting to that size. So I tend to believe that since they're very different localities in region, I tend to believe that that should be reclassified, to be honest. But there's not much knowledge or study on them, so it might
yeah,
take a while.
yeah, yeah, I hear you. Well, with that being said, Rocky, I think it's probably time for us to wrap it up. We're looking at an hour and a half for our first episode.
Uh,
Looks like on average, we had five viewers that stayed the course, hung out with us the whole time. Probably not the same five, but for those of you that were able to catch us live, really appreciate you coming by. Thanks for supporting us, dropping some comments in the chat there. I think this went pretty good. So, I'm going to pass it off to you, Doc, to bid farewell
well,
for the evening.
we truly appreciate you guys. I mean, uh, Travis and I are really good friends. I would say that we could keep this going for 5 hours just talking because we like talking to each other. We have kind of the same mindset on business and but we have different perspectives on things, so it gets interesting. And things in life that we have that are similar. So uh, it really flows. So we can go for hours just talking here about different subjects. And as we go, we touch a little bit of sustainability, but I think we're going to go much more in depth when I come up with the 5 pillars of the breeding, which I believe are the most important things to consider. And we're going to touch a lot on that. So stay tuned, guys. I appreciate all of you. I know that you took time out of your routine and your families just to be here with us. So we truly appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you very much. And thanks again to our sponsors. And that is a wrap for the evening. Everybody take care.